Hello and welcome. You're watching Head to Head on UATV and I'm Alice Gerjuk. 3 days in February. This is a data journalism piece dedicated to the events of February 18th, 20th of 2014, when the Revolution of Dignity culminated and the Heavenly 100 were murdered. An interactive timeline combines text, infographics, maps and videos, providing a detailed story of each person who was killed during these 3 days. The facts and circumstances of their death are followed by short personal stories about their lives. To tell us more about this project, we are joined in the studio by Pavlo Solodko, one of the project's authors and the participant of these events. Hello and thank you for being with us, Mr. Solodko.
Hello.
So first of all, I would like to ask you, how did you get this idea to realize such a project and to finalize basically all the information about this sort of 3 days of Revolution of Dignity into one source?
Our command wanted to make project about escalation of violence through all these events. And when we began to work, we saw that there is too much information for one project, and we decided to concentrate only on these 3 days. It was like we had the intention to make something like memorial to all people who were killed in the day, and protesters and police.
Why this 3 days in particular? Because actually the crime started.
Because the most deaths, most killing were made in the day. More than 100 persons in these 3 days. More than
100 people were killed.
Yeah.
So you mean the figures are the saddest during these 3 days, the figures of death, basically.
Yeah, because violence increased in that time very high, because before these days it was only 3 deaths. You know, 3 protesters were killed about 3 weeks before it.
What about the sources of information that you used to get all of that into one project?
We decided to concentrate on each person and to try to understand where he or she received his mortal wounds, how it was, maybe, and time. We tried to find a correct time and correct place.
So you built everything chronologically, right?
Yeah, yeah. And we made an infographics, how people were moved, and we had intention to make something like memorial, because it will be memorialization. Museum is decided to. We think that the best memory about this all people would be to commemorate in the place with something, just name and.
How many names did you describe in this project? How many life stories? Well, at least approximately.
Totally, it was about 80 of protesters' death, and 12 policemen were killed.
Who were confronting the protesters, basically.
Yeah. I was the writer of this project in our command. I made about 50 biographical details on each person, and then I just was exhausted, and last about 40 people, it's just list, you know, because I worked about 2 months on that project. It's very It was very unpleasant work, you know.
I can only imagine. And when did you finish the project? For how long does it exist?
It's still unfinished because, for example, first...
There was not enough information, basically, right? So you always keep adding the information.
Yeah, and it's work of prosecutors is in process, and it's very long process. It would be last maybe about a year or more. So we decided to make new version each year when we got more information or when we got exactly information.
So do you update?
Yeah,
always?
We decided to update.
But do you cooperate with the prosecutor's office?
Yes.
So basically you get the fresh details from there.
We had 3 sources. It was prosecutor's office, but they don't know all the, they didn't know all the information at the time. The second source is a few chronologies which were made by journalists of BBC Ukraine, Ukrainska Pravda of these days. And the third and the most maybe main source, it's a work of Volunteers Command. It's a work of the Volunteers Command Talionis group. They took each video that they could find and synchronize it, you know. And they find video with deaths of maybe most of these people.
Most of the victims.
We can understand for a second, you know, for most of them.
Well, this looks like an enormous amount of work to do, and from one side I do realize that you said there was too much information from one side, but on the other side there was a lot of information lacking the detailed information. So I looked at the website of your project and I saw that you mentioned that you as a team also assist in the investigation and you always update the project with new facts, and also you're asking people for any help in establishing the truth. So are Ukrainians responding?
We hadn't much information that way. Few comments. Sometimes people just post the link. For example, in Facebook. But it's not too much.
So there is not a lot of result from this, as far as I understand.
But the work of prosecutor office covers all of these people. I know people who were wounded, who were beaten in the day, and prosecutor office called them for all these forensic, you know, procedures. So I think prosecutor's office made the most total part of this work. And we are in contact with them. So I think it would be better to give all official information. People usually shocked when they read all this things. So usually it's emotional comments.
I can only imagine, because also on the website it says that this project is about revolution without decoration and censorship. It contains obscene language and scenes of violence. So basically, I can only imagine that people cannot react very calmly on the events that were happening,
because you know. It was shock for all the nation, because in Ukraine it was total nonsense before these days. Never protesters were killed in such cruel way. demonstratively, you know.
Well, also I would like to mention that this project declares that this is a story about the people who were killed during the protest in the center of Kiev during February 18th and the 20th, as I mentioned, and no matter, it says, no matter on which side of the barricades they parted with life. Is it an attempt to reconcile somehow different sides of these clashes?
We didn't think in that way, but maybe yes, because it's a great tragedy. Most of policemen killed in that day were just, you know, they do their duty. Most of them, I think, were not active killers like this. There is, you know, there is a group of policemen in black uniforms in that videos who, as far as we can understand from the videos, killed most of the people. For example, in the 20th of February. But from this group, only one policeman were killed from hunter rifle. All other policemen, they just make the duty. It was great tragedy, so I think we have to commemorate all of them.
Well, yes, obviously, and I personally admire the work that you are doing, and we all thank you for that, and thank you so much for this interesting conversation.
Thank you.
That was Pavlo Solodko, co-author of 3 Days in February Data Journalism Project. Thank you for watching Head to Head. I'm Oskar Juk. Goodbye.